transactions for Nigeria and Africa, and joined the commodities team in 2010, still with City London. Worked on some landmark transactions, including the first hedging program or price risk management program for the government of Ghana, where we hedged their price at the pump using crude oil as a proxy. Was involved in advising the government on the risk management architecture. Joined Standard Bank in 2010, I believe, or yes, 2010, working as director for West Africa, doing commodities and financing, and joined Deutsche in London as director in charge of Sub-Sahara, excluding South Africa, for capital markets and treasury solutions. At Deutsche, we probably raised over $10 billion into Africa for the sovereign. For Nigeria, for instance, we raised, I think, 3 Euro bonds or so, totaling over $2 billion or $3 billion.
Wow.
We did Ghana, which was about $500 or so million. Did Zambia 1 and 2 for $750 million and then $500 million. I mean, before you think I only did government work, also worked on really good transactions for local financial institutions like Access Bank, raising $400 million for Access Bank. In fact, that was the first, I believe that was the first tier 2 Eurobond for a financial institution out of Africa, which I'm very proud of that deal. Superb team at Access Bank, by the way. Fidelity Bank, $300 million. Eco Bank of Nigeria, about $250 million at the time. So quite a few transactions, totaling over 10 or $12 billion. But where I'm from, we have a saying that home is not where you come from, it's where you return to. So in 2015, I had the opportunity to return to Nigeria to work for Zenith Capital as the CEO. And I had a 4-year contract to revive the business. And I'm very proud of the work the team and I did there. Superb guys. And I'm always grateful to people like Mr. Jubril for the opportunity he gave me to lead that team. And I think before I left, was it in 2018, Zenith Capital won the Best Financial Advisor of the Year at the Banking and Financial Institutions Awards. But I also had oversight for the asset management team, the securities trading team, and the trust business. My contract ended in 2019, and the idea for me then was, okay, I wasn't prepared for entrepreneurship. Okay. It wasn't something I had, you always think about it, but I didn't think it was time.
Okay.
But I think then I turned 42 years old, right? And I think something happens to you after you turn 40. In my case, that's what happened.
Tell me about it.
And at 42, I was like, look, let me try, right? Let me even try. And if it doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out. But at least let it not end and me saying, oh, I didn't even give it a shot. Yeah. So in 2019, in May, my contract ended, I think, was it May or April? I can't remember, sorry. It's been such a long time. And it feels like it's been such a long time. But very fortunately, after my contract ended, I put feelers out and I said to people, listen, I'm thinking about setting up my own thing. And one of my friends who runs a private equity shop said, okay, you know what? I may have a deal for you. I have this packaging company that I'm trying to sell. If you can find an investor for me, you can do it and get some fees, right? It wasn't a lot of fees, but for me, it was a proof of concept Fortunately, and bless God for this, I had an Egbon, an older uncle, not an uncle, but you know what I mean. HNI who was already involved in the packaging business, and I was looking to expand. And I said to him, would you be interested in this? It's a very well-run company. The books are clean, and it's been it has a strong management team. It's been owned by private equity for a few years.
Sorry to cut you, Jubril. Sorry. Please, everybody that is listening, I want you to please pay attention, right? Jubril is already dropping some of the nuggets as to what will help you raise money for a deal. Strong management team. The books are clean. Can you hear it? I hope you can hear what I'm hearing. All right. So pay attention, because inside the stories of great men lies the secret to greatness. So please just pay attention. Sorry to cut you. Go ahead.
No worries. So had a meeting, did the hard work of going all the way to Shagamu to inspect the factory, and they were very professional. They had the plant running, and the investor at the time was very impressed. We closed that transaction within a month.
Wow.
Right? And at the end of that transaction, I got paid a bit of a fee. It wasn't a lot of money, but it proved my concept. With the small fee, I got office space, renovated office space, and then soon after that, we got our first deal, and we got our next deal. And it was on that basis I had my first staff. And I was like, okay, so we got the first staff, and then it's been 2 years after. Pleased to say we're still up and running. We are not only focused on Nigeria, but Ion Capital over the last 2 years, in spite of COVID, has been very active in other markets, including Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, looking at doing a deal in Gambia. We have engaged in South Sudan, Equatorial Guinea. We are mandated on transactions in Kenya as we speak. Not just that. I mean, last year, I think was February, we signed a partnership agreement with the government of Australia through their Investment and Trade Commission, a referral partnership agreement through the Investment and Trade Commission called Austrade, where Ion Capital works with them, not just in Nigeria, but in Ghana, in Kenya, and in Zambia. I'm also pleased to say that we are expanding other verticals of our business, and that will be announced later in the year. We've gotten partnerships and in new investors into different vehicles that we've raised money into. And the intention is to engage Africa across corporate finance, financial advisory, and capital markets, and bring best-in-class international solutions into the African markets. Best-in-class execution being done here. So that's my story.
Wow, amazing, amazing. Thank you, Jubril. I feel like submitting my CV, please. If you're looking to...
We can't afford you.
You'll be surprised. All right, so, Jubril, there's a lot of stuff that you've talked about, and you've done a lot of deals as well. A lot of the people on this platform, we've got people from Kenya, we've got people from Ghana also on this platform. So I'm glad that you touched on those countries as well as things that you're doing. Maybe to sort of open this up a little bit more, you already touched on a few things. Can you maybe be a bit more explicit in terms of some guiding principles for fundraising and for raising money for any business, whether you are a $100,000 business or you are a $10,000 business, right? What are the key things that are critical and cuts across board, no matter the kind of business you're running, whether service business or product, you sell a product or you sell a service, what are things that cut through distinctly that you can highlight for everybody here?
That's a loaded question. Okay, let me answer it this way. And pardon me, I like telling stories, right? So my answers are usually embedded in stories. I learned how to play chess when I was 9 or 10 years old, right? And it was interesting because I learned at 9 or 10, I started playing competitions. I played at Gusto and Co. I played Nigeria Breweries. I started playing competitions locally. By the time I was 11, I think by the time I was 11 or 12, I'd beaten the national female champion at the time.
Wow.
And well, okay, well, she later became the national female champion. So let me not take credit for beating the national female champion. She later became the national female champion. But I learned two very valuable lessons then, which I think are applicable today, and one of which would help answer your question. One, always consider the other side of the board before you make your move, right? It's always easy to focus on your own business plan, right? Yeah. But you also have to consider other factors that are outside your own control before you make your move. The second, which is very important, is begin with the end in mind. So if you play chess, before you make the first move, think about how you want to end, how you want to finish. Where do you want to castle? Are you attacking from the center? Do you want to defend? Are you leading with which pawns? Are you leading with knights? Or think about the end before you begin. So how does that relate to your question? For most businesses, they think about the start and every day. In a business, you think about the end. How do you want to end? In which markets do you want to play in? What kind of partnerships would you like to secure? Or what kind of investors would you like to bring into the business? In some cases, how would you like to exit? Right? And once you do all those, think about all those things. Now start, and for a lot of businesses, that's small businesses, even micro businesses. Yeah. It's difficult to see that end or even contemplate that end. But I assure you, it is crucial to the longevity and sustainability of the business. Now, what are the key ingredients that are required? It doesn't matter how you want to end, right? Whether it's an exit to private equity or VC or a listing on a stock exchange. There are certain ingredients that are required. One, partnerships. There are a lot of businesses that start and do it by themselves, a lot of entrepreneurs that start and do it by themselves. Yeah. I want to assure you, it's better to have the right partner with you through the journey and a partner that complements you. That's one. And we can go into
partnership. Does that mean I must have the person within my business, or it can be like a technical partner or someone who doesn't necessarily sit in my business?
By partnership, I mean someone who shares the load with you.
Right. Okay.
And there are other forms of partnership which we can touch on, which, as you said, technical partnership that are external, and those are required. Yeah. But sometimes, and in my experience, it is very important that, and it's not always going to be easy, right? Entrepreneurship.
Yes.
It's always better when you have someone else that is there that complements you, that shares the load. Right. So let's start, for me, one, partnership. Two, do the right things. Things like record keeping. Not everyone is able to hire a fancy accountant, right? A big four accounting firm. Yeah. If you're able to engage a proper accounting firm, not like a Jubril and Agboade. No, let me not use Agboade, but you know what I mean. But get a proper accounting firm that does things the right way, and there are a few more of those popping up, and they're not too expensive. And even if you can't afford an auditor, there's accounting software out there that helps a lot with all these things. Whatever it is, ensure your books are proper. Yeah. Keep proper accounting records. Whether you have an accountant or you have an accounting firm, whatever it is, keep proper records. Governance is also very important. The culture of governance has to be instituted ab initio from the beginning. Right. Because it's your firm, and if there's no accountability, it becomes easier for leakages to happen. I think it's important that the culture of governance is instilled in the business. And I'm talking about things that cut across different businesses and different sectors.
Right.
I think it's also important that do not be afraid to start small.
Okay.
In certain cases, big things start small. And a lot of entrepreneurs want to expand too quickly and want to grow too quickly, and are unable to absorb shocks when shocks do occur. It's important that the businesses are not intimidated or ashamed to be small or to start small. Doesn't mean you'll always be small, but be willing to start small. Then I think there are other things we can talk about, getting good mentors, but I think I'll end with this point to just answer your question.
I think it's fantastic, and I'm sure as we go along, more things will come out, because also that's the of questions. Now, the other question I wanted to ask is that many people who are looking for funding for their business are really thinking about banks. But you and I know that banks are not necessarily structured to finance startups and to finance many very micro businesses. It's just a very difficult thing for them. Can you just talk around that and specifically focus on, if you can't get money from a bank, what are the other places you can be looking at and areas you can be looking at?
Well, banks are very good at a lot of things, but banks can't solve all the problems.
Sure.
Right? And there are other sources of capital, but I think one of the first things to determine is, do you require debt in the business? And is it too soon to inject debt into the business? I find in my experience dealing with different entrepreneurs and businesses here, is people are reluctant, or most entrepreneurs are engaged, especially at the early stage of business, are very reluctant to secure equity into their businesses. And sometimes for the right reason, for logical reasons. Fear of dilution. They're not sure if the partner is right. And there's so many, the investor is right. There's so many stories, horror stories, not so many, but we hear a few horror stories about people coming into founder-led businesses and all of a sudden hijacking the business or taking the businesses away. We hear those stories and they do exist, but there are a lot of other success stories out there of the right investor coming in and helping grow the business. So I think if we're looking at this holistically, let's talk about equity, let's talk about debt. But your question leans towards debt, so let me answer and address that. Other than banks, conventional commercial banks, there are so many other sources of financing, conventional and unconventional. Commercial banks for MSMEs are doing a much better job, but some of them still need to come up. Some of them still have a learning curve, a long learning curve, so a steep learning curve. And what I'm finding today is the microfinance banks and other lending institutions that are doing a very good job of working with the little guys, the small businesses, right? Over the last month and a half or so, I've raised, or we've helped arrange it's not a lot of money, about 2 billion naira for at least 3 or 4 different commercial players across sectors, from microfinance institutions. And I don't want to sound like I'm an advert for, I'm not advertising any of them. But we've seen people like PiggyVest do a really good job. We've seen people like VF.
Does PiggyVest lend?
Well, they do have the capacity to do so in certain cases. In certain cases, I'm not sure if they do it across board, but in certain cases, they do consider opportunities to do so. VFD is a microfinance bank, and I know they're quite active in the market. Their cost of funds may not be as same as the local commercial banks, but their turnaround time is quite good, and they're close to grassroots, they're close to market. So there are quite a few of them that are out there that do a good job. And look, I'm doing this for free, so you don't need to contact me. You can engage the microfinance institutions. At least I know those two. I've worked with them, and their response time is fantastic. There are also HNIs that have family offices that provide lending capacity, but those are usually a bit more niche, and those come with, in some cases, with equity kickers and ties to equity. So one has to be careful about engaging in some of those players, and just make sure you have a good lawyer, a commercial lawyer that is able to review documents. It's very important. Another area that I think a lot of people have not explored, I think this, for me, it's not unconventional, but it's definitely not mainstream here in Nigeria. The non-interest bearing institutions, like the Sharia compliant institutions, some of which are very plugged in and very attuned to businesses. So long as they're Sharia compliant, they're always in the position to engage. And we seem to be having more and more of them. And I think non-interest lending would become a lot more mainstream over the next 4 to 5 years.
Especially for smaller businesses.
Absolutely.
Because they're the ones that, in starting up, they really don't have the capacity to say that, look, I can pay back all this interest and all of that. And, it's just worth considering, actually. You're right. I'm not even sure I thought about that.
But honestly, I think a lot of businesses need to focus, especially the small businesses, need to focus on equity. Right. And in certain cases, I'll give you an example. There was this customer that came around, and it's a friend of mine. So this was not an Ion Capital conversation. This was me helping a friend out who was looking to raise capital to, there was a product he was trying to bring in, or trying to develop. And I said, look, instead of raising debt, why don't you get things like supplier financing? Go straight to the supplier. In other cases, we've seen distributor financing coming very handy, where you go to the distributor directly and say, okay, you know what, distribute and take a cut on whatever you sell. It saves the trouble sometimes of having to engage a formal lender, right? So there are ways to do this. You don't always need to go borrowing. Right? Sometimes what you need is not capital. You need to ask, okay, what do I need the capital for? And if there's a supplier or a distributor or someone who can provide that, then enter into a direct engagement with them directly. And that solves the capital problem. So you're not raising money, you're actually solving the problem without raising cash.
I mean, I think that's very, very profound, really, because I mean, it reminds me of, I think it was a lawyer that reached out to us, and the lawyer was interested in raising money to open an office, etc. And I said, look, if the briefs you are getting are not really giving you the kind of money you are looking for, opening an office is first going to dig a bigger ditch, right? Why don't you look for someone to partner with, right? Do co-working space, do something where you can share revenue with the person that you are partnering with, or whatever. So I find that in some cases, people that claim to need money don't actually need money. And some of them can unlock capital in their business, which is what you're talking about, right? You can talk.
Correct.
You can talk to a distributor, right? You can talk to customers, ask customers to pay you up front, right? And that can provide some sort of financing, for you and for your business as well, So it's just about being creative and talking to someone that knows about it, which is also a very important point. Thanks a lot for that. Jubril. So, one of the people that reached out to us as well, lady doing very interesting business, probably was about 15 million naira monthly in her business, looking for 2 to 3 million naira. I was a bit shocked as well initially. But when you have that type of business, I guess my question is that it seems to me that it should be fairly straightforward for you to be able to raise, because I imagine that if you're doing business, doing 15 million a month, at least your margins should probably be looking like 20%, right? Will that kind of person be a candidate to say, look, let me just go and get bank financing, sorry, it just occurred to me. The conversation I hear also is collateral. What are the ways around collateral? Maybe that's where I'm going to.
Okay, so you've asked two questions. For the person who has revenue of 15 million, let's not forget you pay your debt not based on revenue, but on cash flow available for debt service, right?
Yeah.
Right. So there are different layers to this. The real question for me would be to find out from the lady or from the company, what do you need the money for? Right. And if you've been doing this business for so long, surely you should be able to generate internally generated revenue of over 2 million, right? But my advice to that person would be do two things. One, secure the services of a financial advisor.
Okay.
Whether it's if you can't afford one of the bigger shops, get someone who can give you that kind of financial advice. And secondly, get legal advice as well. I think it's very important. Financial advice and legal advice should go hand in hand when you're having commercial conversations.
Yeah.
Your second question was about collateral. This has been a problem. Not a problem. That's not the right word. Collateral is a challenge, right? When it comes to borrowing from conventional sources in at least in most emerging markets, and Nigeria is not excluded, right? I think the real issue is that of risk. If things don't go according to plan,
yes,
and sometimes they don't,
yes,
everything goes south and belly up. How do lenders recover their money?
Yeah.
If the entrepreneur is able to think about it in that way, okay, how will people, I go to Jubril Bank, right?
Yeah.
And with this lovely business plan, and it sounds good, and all the mitigants are there. Okay, but if something goes wrong, how will I get my money back?
That's how the investor is thinking. Yeah.
Yes, that's what the lender is thinking.
Yeah.
If you're able to think in that way, it helps you as the entrepreneur solve that problem before you even engage them. Imagine everything goes wrong.
Yeah. What happens?
And how would they get their money back? Because in some certain cases, they're giving you depositors' money.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you're able to think, again, consider the other side of the board.
Like
right?
The chess game, yeah.
Back to my chess analogy, right?
Yeah.
If you're on the other side and you're giving other people's money,
yeah,
and everything goes wrong, what's the fallback? Right? So it's not just, the banks would lend to you on the basis of cash flow.
Yeah.
But the collateral is there to secure, okay, look, if everything goes wrong, our depositors' money isn't put at risk or isn't in jeopardy, which I think is the responsible thing to do. Now, so we have to think about credit enhancements. We have to think around mitigants. I'd give you an example. There's a transaction I'm working on at the moment, Ion is working on, where there's a client looking to raise a certain amount of money. And what we've been able to do is secure credit risk insurance, right? And it's unfortunate that most insurance companies here do not provide credit risk insurance, which is a shame, which I think is a shame. But or even credit default swaps. I mean, when we're in other markets, these things were like bread and butter, right?
Yeah.
Which is a real opportunity for someone here. But so what we had to do was engage an international counterparty to provide credit risk insurance against a local lending solution here. Right. So we got the credit risk insurance in US dollars, and on the basis of that, we're able to lend to the client, or the lender is considering lending to our clients in local currency. So it's right way risk. Sorry, I'm getting a bit too a bit too technical now, but it's right way risk, and there's sufficient risk mitigation there in the event that this person does not pay. We have risk insurance that covers that. So in that case, there isn't physical collateral. It's not land. It's not property. Now, I'm mindful that the audience here, most of the people we're talking to here, may not have access to credit risk insurance products, right?
Yeah.
So the question then is, if you do not possess collateral, how else can you raise the money that you require for the business? Or do you even really need to raise money for the business? What do you need the capital for? I'll give you the example of the lawyer using the example of the lawyer you stated earlier. If you're raising debt to open an office, that's equity. You ought to use your equity to do that, right?
To do that, exactly.
Or you've made revenue from business already, and you're putting that back into the business. There's something else I should mention. I think for businesses that either sell services or products and are able to get long-term contracts, long-term, whether 6 months, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, you're able to get someone to say, listen, I'll pay you XYZ on a monthly basis over the next 12 months, over the next 24 months or 60 months, whatever it is. Depending on the quality of whoever is giving that contract, that contract could be bankable.
Yes.
Right. So it's one thing to get a contract from, let me say, MTN. It's another thing to get a contract from Jubril and Deji, right? If you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the quality and the integrity of whoever is giving the contract is important. So if you get a 3-year or 5-year contract from an MTN, for instance,
it becomes bankable.
It could be bankable. Not in every case. It could be.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to questions now that people are asking in the chat room. The first question says, in giving equity, how does one carry out a back of the envelope quick evaluation to agree with whoever it is that you want to give equity to?
Okay, so I would strongly advise that you do not use the back of the envelope calculation to go into an equity conversation. It's good as a guide. There's several tools online you could use for valuation purposes. They're not entirely accurate, and in certain cases are not adaptable to emerging markets, or certainly not Nigeria or African markets in my experience. My advice would be, again, as an advisory firm, or you have a friend or a buddy or an uncle or an auntie or a sister, mom, dad, whoever it is that has these skills, and let them work you through it. And the question is, okay, but I don't have the money to pay them. There are different arrangements, right? You could come into a situation where, like, listen, if there's a deal you get paid a success fee from the deal, right? But I would strongly urge or encourage whoever it is that is considering selling equity or bringing equity into their business to secure the services of a professional, and not just financial professional advisor, but also a legal advisor as well. Commercial law.
Okay, solid. Thank you. All right, so I've got this question from Kelvin. Kelvin is from Ghana. He says, I have failed in 5 businesses throughout my entrepreneurial journey. My business model has always been directed at solving everyday problems. After several pitching and getting additional capital from family, I started a 5th business. Now, I pitched to an angel investor here in Ghana who showed interest until COVID happened and they changed their mind. I was really in need of that capital injection until things went down. This year, I've started a new business, a multi-vendor e-commerce platform where you can rent out any item of yours, from shoes to suits, gadgets, cars, etc., right? I am currently stuck at MVP stage, trying to raise funds, but everyone is tired of me. Please, what do I do? Wow.
Look, that is a very honest question, Kevin.
Yeah, it is.
And I want to assure you that you're not alone. There are so many people who have tried and failed. And unfortunately, I have more bad news for you. There's a chance that you will fail some more before you get it right. But 2 things, right, Kevin? It's important to understand what it is you're doing wrong. And you may want to take a step back and evaluate everything. And my advice to you in this respect would be, don't raise capital anymore. Pause and engage, if possible, a mentor. Find someone who has been through this same journey you're going through. My advice would be that person should be independent of your family and not biased in any way. Should be an independent third party who is able to provide you with their own experience and guidance in this area. I think it's important that if you're starting something, you stick it through until you know that, okay, listen, I need to pivot. But I'm not saying you don't start and stop, but it's important that these things take time sometimes. And sometimes we quit too early, and sometimes we quit too late, right? But you need the right person to guide you. And I would strongly encourage you to secure the counsel of a mentor or 2 that would help you in that journey. And if possible, if you could secure the services of an executive coach as well, that would be very helpful. Okay,
thanks a lot for that, Jubril. All right, so I've got a question around exportation and funding an export-based business. How easy is it to secure funding if you are selling your goods or your service, or your goods essentially? Maybe you are selling to China, people who are exporting agricultural commodities, etc. How easy is it to secure funding for that?
Well, I think if this question is from a Nigerian, I think I'll answer from the Nigerian perspective, but the lessons are applicable across other markets as well.
Right.
If you have a product you're exporting, you're producing in local currency. In this case, if it's in Nigeria, it's Naira. And you're exporting to another country that is paying you US dollars. That already is right way for you, because your production costs are local currency, your revenues are in foreign currency. Now, there are different trade mechanisms that you could use and trade solutions that you could use to solve that problem. And for this, I would advise that you engage with a local bank, but not just your relationship manager. Probably go to the trade department of the bank, right? And have conversations, because there's certain financial products like letters of credit, bills for collection, that could be made available and structured in a way that enables you unlock credit. Whether it's a large amount or a small amount, it doesn't matter. And there also the federal government of Nigeria, and this is a Nigerian example, a Nigeria specific example, but the federal government of Nigeria have different programs as well that help exporters, and have even the central bank has an exporter program. The thing though is they all run through, not all, I can't say all, but the ones I'm familiar with run through commercial banks.
Commercial banks, right.
So I would strongly advise you engage the trade department of a local bank to have some guidance in that respect.
Okay, thank you, Jubril. All right, so as we get closer to wrapping this up, we've spent close to an hour. Jubril, I don't know if this question puts you a bit on the spot, but let's see how we can do with it, right? The question is, I run an existing business. I'm looking to grow next year. I've got strategies, I've got plans and things that I want to do to grow my business. I'm very clear in my mind what I need to grow. I need to increase my marketing spend. I need to, maybe hire a salesperson, etc. Right? It's a bit of a broad question, but where do I go for funding? One of the things we've talked about here today is that people should look inward, maybe first and foremost, and see what they can do internally, maybe before they go externally. But thinking about it, right, from the perspective of, look, I'm running this business. I want to do some exciting things next year. I want to invest more in marketing. I want to hire more sales rep that will help me sell. Maybe I run a logistics business. I want to buy more bikes to expand my operations. How should I be thinking now? What should I be thinking about?
Okay, I did touch on this point earlier.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to say something that may be considered controversial, but the money you need, right? The capital you're trying to raise is to accomplish something, right? Money or cash by itself is useless. You have to exchange it for service or product, right? And that's where the value comes.
Yeah.
You understand? Now, this person has a clear idea of what they need the money for: marketing, sales, agents, maybe a bit of distribution and things like that, right?
Yeah.
My recommendation would be this: before saddling your business with debt, why not engage a marketing company, right? And you say, listen, I'm trying to do this and market across Nigeria, for instance, or across Africa, across the region. How do we partner in this respect? It said it costs maybe $1 million. Okay, can we structure a plan in such a way that, okay, it may cost me over time maybe $1.2, $1.3 million, but we have a share in every increase in whatever it is that we're selling. So if I was selling $100 before, and as a result of your marketing campaign, I'm now selling 150, we split the 50.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Makes sense.
If it's sales, is there a sales agency that you are going to engage? Can you replicate a similar structure? If you're looking at vendors or you're looking at distributors, can you replicate a similar structure? Right. I see a tendency for people to consider debt as the first thing when what businesses in certain cases really require are equity or innovative funding structures or solutions that don't necessarily need cash. Because what you really need the cash for is, in this case, marketing, is to engage salespeople. So this is where a financial advisor and even a mentor sometimes comes in. There are certain things we don't need. For instance, someone says, okay, I want to get bikes. I need to improve my logistics across a different market or different. Why not get a logistics company that handles that? And then cut them into the deal. And so you're not putting those assets on your books, right? And you're not having to run overheads. You're not having to deal with refixing bikes that break down. You can have a partnership with another firm. You may earn less in your revenue because you're sharing. Yes, but over time it makes sense. And then when your numbers are strong enough and big enough, you can consider if it's the right thing to do to develop that capacity internally. Right? I think entrepreneurs, we need to unlearn and relearn new tools and be in the position to be a lot more agile and think outside the box. Sometimes the tools, traditional tools that we have grown up with or have seen around us just don't apply anymore. In a world that is moving, is virtual, is growing increasingly virtual and online, there are tools that are non-physical that could depend on, and partnerships from all over the globe that we could tap into.
Amazing. Jubril, it's been fun. It's been so much fun. I've learned a lot personally as well. So before you go, give us a sense of how Ion Capital perhaps, can support anybody that is on this call who feels like maybe I need to talk to you guys. At least let me even explore and see whether anything can come out of it. How can we make that happen?
Well, we have a fairly decent website that talks about the services we provide. It's ioncapital.africa. Again, as I mentioned at the top of this conversation, we position ourselves, we say we're an Africa-based, Africa-focused corporate finance and financial advisory firm. So that's where the Africa in Ion Capital comes from. So it's ioncapital.africa. And you may reach us at contact@ioncapital.africa. And we will do our best to respond as quickly as possible.
Thank you. So Jubril, very quickly before you go, someone just dropped this question. I'm also a little bit emotional, so I thought maybe to ask you. So I currently run my family business, which is a school, and my brothers and I took it over without much of an idea of what we were doing. The school is over 20 years old, and it really needs funding to run, because everything we spend today goes into staff salaries, minor projects, etc. My late dad instructed us not to get a loan because of his experiences with the bank. I'm thinking of packing up. So this seems to me, and this looks like, the traditional SME, right? They spend a lot of the money they make on, operating expenses, right? So my question firstly is, should you even be in that kind of business? And if you should be, right, what is, I don't know whether, we can't put it in a straight jacket and say what is a decent return or whatever, but, how do you advise this person, for example?
Unfortunately, there's so many businesses that fall into the same situation. And they get into a bit of a rut. They borrow money to get themselves out, and they're just digging deeper holes. Don't get me wrong, I'm not against debt. I'm sorry if I gave anyone that impression. I think debt used wisely and productively could be a really good thing. But there is such a thing as bad debt, right? My advice to a person like this would be, invest time in educating yourself first. what are the recent global trends in education? In a world that is increasingly virtual, how is physical learning adapting, right? But also part of the education process is understanding which other deals have been done in the market in your sector. Who is investing in education? What did they look for when investing in education? I know certain private equity firms in Nigeria that have actually, over the last 3 years or so, invested quite a bit of money in education. I give you for free, Verot Capital, for instance, have acquired a school or two in Nigeria, and not just in Nigeria, I think in Ghana as well, right? And there are other private equity players, even in certain cases, VCs, that are putting money into education. Why did they pick this school over the other school? What key ingredients did they look for, right? The last piece of advice that comes to mind for this fellow would be partnerships, right? Are there partnerships with international or regional schools or even national schools that you can tap into that would improve the quality of education that you provide?
Or even franchises,
possibly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Are there new, and partnerships is not just strategic, it's also financial. Are there situations where you can bring an equity partner that has experience and in running educational programs, or even access to international schools outside the country that they are bringing money in? It's not just money they're bringing, they're also bringing access and network, right? So there are different things you can do, but the last thing I always tell small businesses, the last thing you should consider is debt, not the first thing. When you're a much bigger business, you can absorb the shocks of interest rates moving from 15% to 28. When you're a small business, that could kill you.
On arrival, absolutely.
I hope that helped.
Jubril, I don't know. For me, I think it was very good. It was helpful. Thank you so much. All right, for your time today. We really appreciate it. If this has been a helpful session for you, please put in the chat box. Please put in the comment section as well, and let us know that it's been helpful for you. All right, Jubril, we want to say very big thank you. All right, Femi first is saying thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very helpful. And all of that. So I think it's been a wonderful time of learning for every single person. And I want to thank you. I can't thank you enough, for this. All right. Nana Stanley says, thank you. I'm so grateful. Yinka Modi says, thank you. I'm very grateful.
Wow.
Smartly and strategically helpful. Wow. This person says it's been very insightful. Amos says it's been great. I wish it could continue.
Well, that's very kind of them. Thank you.
He says, thank you so much. Thank you, Jubril. Thank you, Deji. It was enlightening. All right, thank you. So, Jubril, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. You and I will catch up again. All right.
Absolutely.
Thank you for your time and advice, Samuel. Kelvin from Ghana says, thank you so much, specifically.
Oh, Kevin, well done. Thank you.
All right. So, Jubril, thank you so much. Everybody, thank you so much, for being a part of today. On Instagram as well, people are saying thank you. It was absolutely helpful, great, very helpful. Thank you. I'm just reading all sorts of comments here. So, Jubril, thank you. We're super grateful. Guys, don't forget, in the month of November, every Saturday in the month of November, we're going to be spending time praying for 2022 and just believing God for amazing things in our businesses. Please don't forget, follow us on Instagram at Deji Agboade or at Marketfaith.Online. We're going to try and put this video on YouTube after today. So once again, thank you so much for joining. All right. If you still have any questions after today, please send us a DM. If I need to ask Jubril, I'm sure he will oblige me. So happy to respond to your messages. So once again, everybody, thank you so much for joining. God bless you. All right. And then we'll see you next time. Jubril, thank you so much. I'll be in touch. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, Deji.
All right then.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thanks, guys. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.